Back to you live. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy. Good morning, everyone, and welcome today to our last meeting of Wigtown Area Committee on the 2nd of March 2022. As I say, this is our last meeting before the local government elections, and I would just like to say thank you so much to our wonderful admin support that keeps us going at Wigtown Area Committee. Without the support of Wilma and Fiona and Jamie and Claire, who keep us right for governance, as well as Sandy and Abby, there's no way that we would be able to have continued throughout the pandemic. So I just want to put on record my thanks to all the admin team that have kept us going throughout the last year or so and last 5 years. So just to let you know, as you will be aware, this meeting will be recorded on Teams and the recording will be available online after the meeting. Could I remind members to follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones, switching off their videos when they're not addressing the meeting. Should you wish to contribute to any items, you should write speak in the Teams chat function and you'll be invited to speak in order about new issues. I have also asked to make sure that those in the room will be made aware because it will be written speak in the chat as well. Should your questions or issues be raised by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so we can deal with the business as effectively as possible. The usual standing orders apply, including any votes will be undertaken by roll call, and if any members have to leave the meeting for any reason, can I remind you to either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time, or you can write leave in the Teams chat function and then join, and this will allow us to monitor members' presence. Before we turn to the first item, I'd also like to make a mention of the achievement of our wonderful local athletes and particularly the curlers. As you're all aware, the leader last week at full council offered congratulations, and as vice chair of the Wigtownshire Area Committee, I too would like to offer that. I think our local curling teams, the women bringing home the gold medal and the men the silver, has been absolutely outstanding, and I think we are all exceedingly proud of them. And I welcome the fact that the leader has confirmed that there is going to be a civic reception put in place for the curlers. I know that there's a keenness that will be hosted locally, but obviously we'll need to wait to get the details of that confirmed near the time. So, first of all, I will move to the Southern apologies and... yes.
Councillor Scobie would like to speak.
Yep, absolutely. Councillor Scobie, would you like to come in?
Oh, right. Sorry, I thought I pressed it. Aye, just to echo the sentiments you made there in terms of the tremendous achievement that our colours got in terms of the gold medal for the women's colours and the silver for the men's curling team. It's been an exceptional award, particularly to Ward 1 where there's so many of the colours. And I would hope that this area committee would agree to put to the council that we hold that reception in Stranraer rather than waiting for a decision, but that this area committee would put forward that we would want to see it in Stranraer to recognise the achievements of Ward 1 in particular. And again, in terms of Laswalt, where two of the colours actually went to the school there, the primary school. So I think there is merit in that, and we should have this as soon as possible, if not before it. So in that respect, I would hope that we would unanimously agree to put forward to the council that we hold this reception in Stranraer to recognise such a tremendous and exceptional achievement, and that this goes with the strength of the area committee.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Yes, no, I'm happy to support that, absolutely. I've got Councillor Surtees' hand up, and then I've got Councillor Gusty wanting to come in. So, Councillor Surtees, first of all, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to echo, I'm not going to waste time with repeating everything. Absolutely fantastic. And I would support Councillor Scobie 150% to everything that he suggested about the celebration being as soon as possible and in Stranraer. So I won't sort of go on about it, but I really, really do support that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Surtees. Councillor Gusty.
Thanks, Chair. Again, I'm not going to echo exactly what the others have said because I don't think I need to. But it's obvious that in Stranraer we've got a strong culture of curling. I think we need to support that. We need to support the local curlers. And we need to be as strong as we possibly can to get this down in Stranraer or down in the west rather than having it in Dumfries. And that's my fear from last year when I put my motion in that got this civic reception, is that it was going to be Dumfriesified. We need to fight against that. We need to be as strong as possible against that.
Thank you, Councillor Gusty. I've got Councillor Ingalls in the chat has said that you agree also with Councillor Scobie on this. I don't know if you want to come in, David.
No, I just fully agree with Willie's comments and everybody else. Katie, no point going back over this. Yeah, I think it's an absolute must that this takes place in Stranraer.
Agreed. Thank you. And Councillor McCammon, you've got your hand up as well.
Yes, Chair. I'm not going to go up. But anyway, just my support on record for it to be over in the West. I think it's a no-brainer.
Thank you. And Councillor McComb, I've got an indication from you too.
You have indeed, Chair. Heartiest congratulations to our local curlers. Their efforts have been amply rewarded. I would say Wigtownshire, in terms of Olympic gold medals, must be the best performing local authority area in the United Kingdom. Also, fullest success was achieved by the fan zone, a unique development for local sport, and heartiest congratulations to the North West Castle Hotel for hosting the fan zone.
Thank you, Councillor McComb. Yes, I mean, I think members were all in agreement on this. If you're happy, I'm happy to take forward an action out of the meeting today to basically put forward those strong recommendations, and that we are requesting that this takes place, the civic event, as soon as possible and in Stranraer. Is that happy for members to agree for me to take that forward as an action?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, members. So, item 1, let's go to our sediment apologies and my approval of the remote participation. Claire, are you able to give us our sediment apologies, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from our Chair, Councillor Sloan, this morning. We've got 4 members present on Teams, being yourself, Councillors Ingalls, McCammon and Surtees, and there are 3 members present in the room here in Stranraer, being Councillors Giusti, McComb and Scobie.
Thank you, Claire. And I am happy to confirm my agreement to the remote participation. So item 2 is declarations of interest. I want to just put on record for myself. I know in the past I've always declared being a director of Whithorn Trust, although it's not a interest any longer. I just wanted to put that on record because I am no longer a director on the Wigtown Trust, so therefore I do not have that declaration at this point. So I just wanted to make that clear to the committee. But are there any other declarations of interest members wish to make?
Item 9, Chair, London Road playing field. I have a son who I think is on that committee. I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Okay, if there's no other declarations of interest, let's move on to item number 3, which is the minute of the previous meeting of the 3rd of November. Are members happy to note the previous meeting?
Noted.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. Okay, moving swiftly on to item number 4. This is our first report on that's been presented by Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and it's a performance management report for Wigtown, which details the local performance from the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2021. I'm pleased to see much of the information in this report is disaggregated to Wigtownshire level, and I know I have complimented the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service previously in the infographics that they use. It's a really good format that makes it really easy for members to basically get that snapshot in time, so thank you. I'm also pleased to note that we have a low rate for non-domestic fires, and that continues, and there's good news is that we've had no casualties that have been reported, so that's really good news as well. So we do have John Harvey here to speak to the report. So first of all, I will go to John and ask if there's anything that you would like to add to the report, and then I'll open it up to members for comments.
Good morning, John Harvey, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. Just to add to what the Chair was saying there, we've also some other good news regarding 2 new posts that have been created in Wigtownshire, and that's in the form of a fire safety auditing officer and a community safety advocate, which will certainly bolster and assist with our prevention and protection in this area. And also in the report, just to highlight it, we've got a youth volunteer scheme starting in April of this year, where we've got youngsters in hopefully for a 3-year period to learn the skills of the Fire and Rescue Service. And that also, just for your information, there is a new course starting at the Dumfries and Galloway College, a public service course. So we're hoping we can tie in with the youth volunteer scheme that we are starting, and also tie in with the college course starting in August this year. So hopefully they'll work hand in hand. Just happy to take questions on the report after that. If there's anything you'd like to know or any information you're interested in knowing, I'm happy to answer.
That's great. Thank you, John. Yes, I think it is really imperative engaging with young people, and I think it's a really positive move. So thank you. I've got Councillor Gussie looking to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, John. My question is based on your recruitment, and you've just outlined there that you've got 2 new posts. But in the report, it kind of tells me that you're struggling to maintain a high level of recruitment, and you're struggling to keep retainers. Is this still the case? And if so, where are you actually struggling? Which ward or which base? Also, another aspect of it is with the new rollout of the fire alarm systems, and well, sorry, not the new rollout, the new legislation on fire alarm systems, has that put extra burden on you?
Thanks for those questions. Firstly, on the recruitment side, I'm happy to say that both Stranraer and Newtonshire stations are pretty much at full complement at the moment. Areas that we're still looking to recruit is the Wigtown and Drumore stations. Happy to say that Drumore has got one person interested in a post down there at the moment, which is going through a selection test this week. For Wigtown, we're still maintaining good availability down there, but we are working hard to recruit in that area, and I'm working hard with the personnel at the station. We're doing sort of leaflet drops, we're doing posters, and we're actually doing online recruitment as well. And we're going to begin out with appliance on weekends in the surrounding area just to try and drum up a bit of support and advertise it more heavily in the area. But as far as cover for the stations, it's no impacted too much in these areas, but we could do with more recruitment, and any assistance we can get, that would be very much appreciated. Regarding the new legislation for the fire alarms, yep, that came into force in February this year, February the 1st, and there has been additional, I wouldn't say burden, but additional requests from the fire service regarding information if we can assist with the fitting these alarms. Certainly, as it says in the report, we've fitted a number of these linked systems. It's a requirement, or a low requirement now, but only for the very high risk in the area. We'll have signposted persons to different organisations which can assist with that. So Care and Repair was assisting with the fitting of these alarms and supplying them, and the handy van service is also involved in the fitting of these alarms. So it has increased the workload, there's no question about that. Just regarding alarms themselves, I mentioned in the report, but there was an issue with the fire service actually getting these alarms, and I think that's right across the board. There's been a number of, a sort of lack of microchips for these alarm systems, so getting these alarms has been fairly hard. We did have a set-up with a company, escapes my name at the moment, but we've managed to tie in with ICO, which is another service delivery or organisation which is supplying alarms. So the alarms we've got at the moment are suffice for doing the work that we're carrying out, and any areas that's short alarms at the moment, we can move the alarms around about the country to supply the needs at that point in time. So I don't see any shortage of alarms for the fire service. They should be hearing in plenty of times the new alarm systems from ICO. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councillor Gusty, is that okay for you? Do you want to come back with any other questions? Or
That's fine.
Thank you. I think I did see Councillor McComb's hand going up there. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
Go ahead,
First of all, John, congratulations for the retained duty system fire turnout. I note it's the second best in Scotland, and that's something you should be highly commended for. A couple of questions. The new interlinked fire alarms, can you confirm these do not require to be hardwired? Because there are still people who believe they do.
That's me now. Just regarding the interlinked smoke alarms, just confirmation that these do not have to be hardwired. So the new systems that they use is sort of Wi-Fi Bluetooth systems. So battery operated alarms is suffice for the new legislation. There is no requirement for these alarms to be hardwired in any shape or form. Okay, you're quite happy with that? Right. I was just going to clarify regarding these alarms. The basic setup in the premises, you're looking for one smoke alarm on each level or your property. You're looking for a smoke alarm in the most lived-in room, which in most cases will be your living room. You're looking for a heat detector in your kitchen, and you're also looking for a carbon monoxide next to your boiler system, or if you've got an open fire. But you're quite right in what you're saying. There's no need for these to be hardwired.
Thank you. Yep. Point I wanted to raise, the youth volunteer scheme which is being piloted in Stranraer, can you give us further details of what's involved there?
Yeah, certainly. So we've got the youth volunteer scheme starting in April, and we will have between 12 and 15 youths that will be taking part in this scheme. It is a pilot scheme, like you say, and initially running over a 3-year period. So in that, the youths that are taking part in the scheme, they'll get issued with a fire kit, and they'll pretty much follow the same 3-year pattern that a retained firefighter would learn. So whereas the retained firefighter goes through a sort of red, amber and green phase regarding their training, these youth volunteers will go through a very similar training programme, if you like. But obviously, there's caveats to that, where they're doing additional sort of community safety work or getting involved with other partnerships in the area. So it's, like you say, a pilot scheme, but I think a lot will develop and develop for the particular area that it's working in. So there might be some changes as it's carried out, if you like.
Thank you. And presumably you're hoping in the long run that this leads to more retained firemen being recruited.
Yep, it's not part of the scheme, but I would imagine that off the back of the scheme, there's every chance that we'll get additional recruitment off of the back of that. And as I mentioned, regarding the college course at the John Niven Centre, I would imagine that there could be potential youth volunteers moving into that scheme afterwards that might be looking for jobs within the fire service or the police or ambulance.
Thanks very much, John.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Yeah, that's a really comprehensive answers there, John. Thank you. I don't see anybody else looking to come in at this point.
Councillor Justy would like to speak.
Right, Councillor Justy.
Sorry,
Yep,
Chair,
would you like to come back in?
No, coming on the back of what Councillor McComb just asked there. See, with the youth volunteers, is there a fast track scheme that if they were minded to become fire personnel in the future, because you just said that they will have done that 3-year steps, what was it, red, amber and green, would there be a way to fast track them into the fire service from that?
Although there's no fast track system at the moment, that might be something that might be delivered later on, but if they've already done this type of training, then obviously it puts them in a far better position for getting a post and getting through the recruitment process, I would suggest. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's a really great opportunity for young people, and actually when young people are looking to go on to other opportunities and careers, being able to put that on their CV, their personal statements, I think is really beneficial. So I think we all win with that one, both the people of Wigtownshire and the young people going forward. So thank you. So if there's no other comments or questions at this point, let's move to the recommendation. And the recommendation is that we have scrutinised the performance report as detailed in the appendix and Appendix A. So are members happy to note that?
Happy to note.
Thank you. Right, moving on to item. Thank you, John, as well for your attendance at the committee today. So moving on to item number 5, this is our Economy and Development 6-month assessment of business plans for 2019 to 23 performance, and this covers from the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2021, and the report is by the Head of Economy and Development. So there's a few issues in here. Well, there's a lot of issues and a lot of things been happening. There's a lot of positive work that's been going on, including the confirmation of the fact that we had 193,000 meals that were supported via the Solution Centre and Distribution Hub. There's also updates on many projects that are happening across Wigtownshire, from the George Hotel, the Stranraer Marina expansion project, to the Glenshule High project, Whithorn, Wigtown Old Bank project. So there's various bits of pieces that have been presented here to members. There's also the fact that the Stranraer Place Plan will be amongst one of the first of its kind in our region and gives a real focus to investment with communities at the heart of any decision processes. Now, I do have Simon Fieldhouse on the team. I see various council officers. So what I think is possibly best to do is put it to members. Simon, I don't know if there's anything you want to add at this point, but I have no doubt that members will come in on various points. And yeah, thank you to those officers who are available today to answer those.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to add. As you say, there is a range of officers that we've got with us today. If there's anything that can't be answered, then we'll go away and obviously get those answers and bring that back to the committee in due course.
Thank you, Simon. So I'll open it up to members. Is there any questions that members would like to bring forward just now?
Chair, I've put my...
Councillor Gusty, yes.
Thank you. This seems to be that we're getting a bigger list here, Chair, which is good. I mean, it's good to see that or working on a lot of projects. I remember when we first started the council, there was only perhaps 3 or 4 major projects on this list, and I'm seeing more in Ward 2, which is good. One project that has been on the cards for this whole time was the Stranraer Conservation Area, the Cars project, sorry. And we're getting a communications plan, etc. here. If I'm being honest, I've never felt that the communications for cars was ever particularly good. I still don't know how many people have actually benefited from cars. I don't know how many businesses or flats or anything in the town centre have actually had money from cars. I don't know what the overall benefit has been. I know that in the overarching committee, I can't remember, was it EEI? A couple of years back, we put up the grant funding up to 90%. Did that help with the uptake, or did that just did we go back to people and offer them the 90%? I don't know. I actually don't know. So I'm just looking for a bit of details about it, because if I'm being honest, I'm seeing a bit of, it's quite wishy-washy from what I've seen all these 5 years. And every time I ask questions, I don't get good answers.
Thank you, Councillor Gusty. I don't know which officer's here to speak on that one. I do know that we did have our members' briefing last Friday, and we have been having those monthly updates, and they have been really brilliant in order to be able to get that level of detail. But I appreciate that if that's not in the report, it may not be available to members of the public. But Simon, I don't know if there's a member of your team that can answer some of those questions. I know there has been various reports to ENR and previously EE&I, but I'll maybe pass over to you, please.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, Pam Taylor, who is the lead sort of officer for cars, is not here at this moment in time. I take on board all the points that Councillor Gusty has made, and obviously we'll look at obviously providing much more detailed update in a written format to members on those points that have been made in terms of numbers, take up, benefits from cars, and obviously sort of the I suppose the sort of the lack or potential lack of communication to members and members of the public. But my apologies, I can't answer those questions directly today, but we'll endeavour to get that back to you as soon as possible, Councillor Gusty.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, I think if that information can go out to all members within the Wigtown Area Committee, that would be really helpful. And I know Pam was at the meeting last Friday, so that was welcome too. Councillor McComb, I've got you looking to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair. On page 42, at the top there, I note there has been progress with the Stranraer Place plan. My question is, what progress has there been with the 2 other towns in Wigtownshire which also have place plans?
Thank you, Macomb. Simon, are you able to answer that?
Hi, thank you, Chair. Yes, in short, there's been no further progress made with those other areas, Councillor McComb. The team who are responsible for place have obviously been overseeing some of the additional grant aid that's been undertaken through the Scottish Government over the last couple of months, and unfortunately that's delayed the programme. I will get David Gardner, who's the lead officer for place, to obviously try and provide a bit more of a detailed update to members to allow sort of recognition of timescales.
Thanks for that, Simon. My understanding was that these place plans would move in tandem with each other rather than sequentially.
Thank you, Chair, through yourself. Yes, I think that was obviously the initial plan. Unfortunately, obviously, sort of with the latest round of grant support that the council's been delivered, that's obviously sort of derailed that slightly. But as I say, I'll speak with the lead officer and make sure they can obviously provide that update to you.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you, Councillor McComb. It is a point that I've raised also, and certainly I am aware that I understand that one of the lead officers is actually due to make contact with both Whithorn and Wigtown as being the other 2 towns that were identified as requiring place plans going forward. So I think when that information goes out to 2 community councils, which I've been advised will be happening, if members can be updated at that point as well, that would be really useful. So I've got Councillor Ingalls looking to come in, and then Councillor Scobie, and then I'll come back to yourself, Councillor Gusty, if that's okay.
Thanks, Chair. It was really just a point on the George Hotel project, which the report appears to be a wee bit out of date, but I suppose given that this is a historic report, we'll just need to accept that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Ingalls. Councillor Scobie, you were looking to come in next, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just to pick up on what Andrew was saying there in terms of, he made reference to cars there, but the same could be said of any of the projects. And at one time, I'm in support of the narrative that's provided on each of the projects. But what used to be provided was a table, and a table that gave a time scale on each of the projects in terms of how they were moving forward. That is what's needed in the project, in the report, so that we can see that progress is being made and at what pace it's being made. And that can relate to any project that you speak of here. And already 2 of the members have spoken in terms of how things are moving on. We need to see that these are being developed. And just to the point that David made there, and I was going to make it in 3.6.1, in terms of the George Hotel, it is a dated narrative. It's historical for that, because it refers to reporting in February 2022. And what we need is a constant update, and a table would give us that. And just to assure members, because, you know, I read in the paper that at least Tommy and I are accused of not letting the committee know, or members know. I'm quite happy to share a document that I provided to Simon and his team. And indeed, we asked the question some months ago in terms of that we seem to have been putting all our eggs in the one basket in terms of the George Hotel, and that was with the Wheatley Group, who then decided that it wasn't feasible, or for whatever reason withdrew from that project, and that would put us way back. So we've been pushing for this in terms of Plan B, and I'm sure Simon will confirm that in the number of meetings that Tommy and I had with his team. So I'm pleased that they accepted what we had put forward some months ago as a blueprint, not as the ultimate, but as a blueprint in terms of the George Hotel by way of a tourist, leisure and cultural centre. And I must say that from the remarks I've read on social media and the approaches that have been made to me, it has met with a positive response in the town, and I hope we can only build on that with the work of the economic development team in terms of involving the whole community. That will be of great benefit to Stranraer and further afield. So I would hope that we can move that forward or on much quicker than what we have done in the past, with the George Hotel being such an eyesore and a blight on the whole of Stranraer and its economy. If I just move on to another couple of points, Chair. I know in 3.6.11 Strategic Housing Plan, and that's reference to Nursery Avenue, Stranraer, and pleased to see that again is moving on, and this dates way back to regeneration of the Dix Hill, and that was the final part of the whole of that project. But what I would hope this committee, and we may come to that in the recommendations, that this committee would put forward about the drastic shortage of large properties in Stranraer. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, even 6-bedroom properties, and I'm pleased to note that there is actually a 6-bedroom property being custom built by DGHP with their cooperation in the Nursery Avenue. But there's a huge shortage of these properties. I've raised it yesterday at the seminar, and Tommy has raised it in as Ward 1 member at the appropriate committees, that we do need SHIP, Strategic Housing Investment Programme, to be investing in large properties, both for homeless and for let. Both are chronically short in Stranraer. Chair, that's I've said enough today.
Okay, Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Yes, I mean, I would agree with you on the large properties. I'm working with a family right now who are really struggling, and they are a large family, and there is a lack of properties available. So any investment is really welcome, but we need to, as you say, ensure that it's the correct investment locally. Simon, I don't know if you or any of your team want to come back on any of the other points that have been made by Councillor Scobie. I do think he does raise a pertinent point about essentially key performance indicators, where we are, and in terms of progression. I know in the past we've often had tables which show a percentage of where we are and when items are due to be completed, so members can have that real oversight as to, are things moving? If they're not moving, if there's exception reports, we're often given those. So I appreciate that we don't have that today, but if we can ensure that we get that for the next performance report within ENR, that would be really helpful. But I will pass back to you to address any of the other points that Councillor Scobie has raised. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Jay. Yes, I will take that back in terms of the formatting of the report to ensure that we've got obviously a change to that template to allow obviously members to have oversight on the project, obviously development as a whole. I would agree obviously with Councillor Scobie, this is a slightly outdated report, as it obviously covers a period of time that was obviously reported to ENR committee last November, and obviously sort of the updates are flowing out through obviously each of the area committees at this moment in time. Obviously, I'd like to think that through the engagement we have with elected members on a fairly regular basis, through obviously sort of through the Wards 1 and 2 members briefings, that obviously we are providing obviously members with an update on those critical projects. I do have obviously a couple of members of staff here on the call today in relation to the George Hotel that can maybe sort of provide just a bit of a snapshot for this committee, just to reassure them that obviously things are moving forward from where the report is at this moment in time. And obviously I will have a chat with our strategic housing officer to obviously just sort of reiterate the points that Councillor Scobie's made in relation obviously to house sizes, etc. But if you'll allow me, Chair, I'll bring in either Melissa or Sarah Jane, just obviously provide just a very quick snapshot on the George Hotel.
Yep, no, that would be helpful. I see Melissa's put her camera on, so I'll turn to Melissa, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, we get a little bit frustrated too that the time period for providing information for this report is a little bit in the distant past. As members are aware, through the briefings and through the report that we took to Economy and Resources Committee in February of this year, we have made significant progress now with the developing proposals for an end use for the former George Hotel. We had been held back with this over the past couple of years. First of all, we weren't clear what the end use was going to be when we inherited the project from a previous team, and we needed to make sure that the end use was actually going to meet with local need, and local needs have been very much a movable picture over the past couple of years as a result of COVID, the COVID pandemic. The picture is now clearing, and through the work that we've done over the past couple of months, we've now identified an end use that will then be the focus of taking this project forward. And we've already started to take the project forward. That is in two strands. So first of all, that involves extensive stakeholder engagement, and my colleague Sarah Jane Alsop is here that can give you an update on where we are with that. And what we're also doing is we are in the process of procuring a project design team that can respond to the information that we get from those stakeholder engagement activities to develop the concept designs, prepare budget costs that will then enable us to start building our development funding strategy. The remit of the project development team that I lead is to develop and implement project funding strategies, and our ambition is to bring forward a project funding strategy by the summer of this year, with the aim of pursuing funding streams in the summer and the autumn. Our ultimate ambition is to secure funding that would enable a site start to take place in 23-24. It will take some time, obviously, to do design. To take design, even when I had a magic wand, I couldn't take it forward any quicker than the statutory processes allow us to do. So that's what we're going to be doing this year, as well as securing the funding, but also making sure that the community are at the heart of the process and that they are able to work with us to identify an actual design proposal that is going to meet local ambitions. As I say, using that information, we will be pursuing a funding solution and implementing that too. My colleague Sarah Jane Alsop is here to provide information on where we are with the stakeholder engagement.
Thank you, Melissa. Sarah Jane.
Thank you, Councillor Hagman. Yes, our department has been engaged with some of the introductory meetings with the larger stakeholder groups across the last couple of months in Stranraer, and we are now progressing proposals to place the stakeholder and community engagement for the project at the George Hotel within Stranraer Development Trust, supported by the Smart Group. It's important, as my colleague Melissa says, that there is a strong sense of ownership moving forward for any decisions and any end uses that are created for the project at the George. It's such an emotive site. It's been the cause of such concern for the last few years. So it's important that the answer comes from within the community itself. And we're actually we've got a report going to the March Economy and Resources Committee to ask for a budget allocation to award to Stranraer Development Trust to put the community in control of its own engagement and the ability to inform the design team of the needs and requirements of a new project at the George moving forward. So as Melissa says, we are asking for that allocation to engage with the design team, but also to get something firmly embedded within the community. And our team will work hand in hand with the Stranraer Development Trust to ensure, hoping to develop through arts-based activities, focusing on underused spaces in Stranraer. Moving forward, we will gather information regarding the end use and the ideas moving forward, and feedback regarding any concept designs which come out. So that's the plan for the summer, and yeah, hopefully we'll be a bit higher profile with communications and involved in the asking the community their thoughts and views moving forward.
Thank you both for that. I think absolutely it was a point raised by Councillor Surtees that communications is absolutely imperative as we move forward. Councillor Scobie, were you wanting to come back on this point before I move on to Councillor Gusty and then Councillor Ingalls?
Thank you, Chair. And Melissa talked about frustration there. There's no one more frustrated given the number of years. And I go back to when the report came before us, and the George Hotel was in private hands, and it was an eyesore then. And the only way we could move forward was the report we got from officers then to say we have a project in mind and we would move forward with it, and secured the funding from the Scottish Government to the value of something in £1.8 million. That has been used up with only I think a couple of 100,000 left, if indeed there's anything left. So we sense the frustration, not sense it's just frustration, but we feel that frustration in the number of years that this has been outstanding. So I accept what Melissa's saying, but it's more felt by the local members in terms of the time this has taken. And Sarah Jane, and I welcome Sarah Jane's involvement and her engagement with the community, because we need the community on board for this to take this forward, because no one's got the monopoly of ideas. Everyone, and as I say, I've had been communicated to and passed these on to Sarah Jane. So I think that there is an interest again being shown, and we've got to take advantage of that. And I would like to see it moved on much quicker than perhaps what Melissa's saying, notwithstanding that there may be issues to overcome So in that respect, I would hope that we can see the George Hotel and we have that timetable so that we can see it develop. And I think it's got to be driven by the local members to make sure that we are keeping the time, that we are moving it forward as quickly as possible, because too many years have been lost on this, and there's nothing more felt than the people of Stranraer's frustration at the whole thing. So I would hope we can keep. I'll pick up a couple of points with Simon when I do meet with Simon and his team later this week, in terms of the community reuse shop and the energy project, and again another exciting opportunity for west of the region, and Simon and his team and wider afield have been working tremendously at the potential for the west of the region in moving energy projects forward for Stranraer, tying in again with Greenport status that I hope we can secure for Cairn Ryan, and I hope to see that in a future report.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Apologies, I was just looking at my list of the wrong way around. I've actually got Councillor Ingalls next, and then I will come to Councillor Gusty. Apologies on that one. David, would you like to come in next, please?
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Yeah, you know, it sounds as though we've got a real plan for the George, or things are moving forward fairly positively, which is really good. Given the fact it was purchased in December 17, we really didn't hit the road running on this one. We basically hit a brick wall with it, but it appears now that you know, we've got we're developing a plan for the building. It's frustrating, and I share Willie and the rest of the elected members' views on this in Stranraer. It's frustrating that first of all, there was a document available from 2012 which sort of pointed towards a tourism and culture venue in Stranraer. And that appears to only recently have come to light as far as elected members are concerned, myself in particular. But also, prior to the pandemic, we had a meeting as elected members and we discussed the George Hotel. And at that meeting, it was highlighted that the likelihood of registered social landlord going into that building was pretty slim because of the footprint of the building. And at that meeting, it was tabled that, you know, a cultural heritage project for the George Hotel should be something that we looked at. You know, it's really frustrating. It's taken to now to really get to grips with this and look at what we can deliver in there. However, the positive thing is we're looking at it now, and we can replicate what places like Kirkcudbright have done, and begin to put an attraction in the town centre that will bring people into the town centre, and, you know, effectively all the businesses in the town centre should benefit from that. So I'm glad to hear that Melissa seems very enthusiastic about this, and I fully understand the length of time these things take. And I can also understand Willie's frustrations on this, and it would be good to see it moving forward really quickly if we can. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. I don't know, Simon, if you want to come back just as a comment on those points.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, obviously, sort of, we take on board those points, and we will obviously look at, putting in the resources. And as Melissa said, obviously, we are seeking a budget allocation, which will help us move forward, obviously, at the next ENR committee. So obviously, I share members' frustrations, and we would like to see these things moving much quicker than they are at this moment in time.
Okay, no, thank you. Councillor Gusty, you were looking to come in next, please.
Chair, I'm going to let Councillor McComb go first. I think I've been a bit greedy this meeting, so I'll let other members have a wee talk.
No problem. Councillor McComb.
Thank you very much, Andrew. The Glentrool Hive, can you confirm that an additional £100,000 of funding has been received from SOSI?
Thank you, Chair. I'll pass across to Melissa. I don't think we can confirm that, as I'm not aware of that at this moment in time, unless Melissa's got anything further to add on that, but I can find that out for you, Councillor McComb.
So, Councillor, the we have obtained a grant uplift from the Scottish Government for Regeneration Capital Grant Fund of a further £100,000. If the organisation, if they have managed to secure additional funding from South of Scotland Enterprise, that wouldn't come via the council. That would be done directly between the group and South of Scotland Enterprise. So I'm not aware of an application having gone in, but I am aware that we were able to secure an additional £100,000 in 21-22 for that project, yes.
Was that to fund cladding, Melissa?
It was, I don't know the specific breakdown of the works cost that was dealt with by one of my colleagues, but it was based on a tender, a shortfall in funding based on the tendered costs. And that was the case that we made to the Scottish Government. So that would take the total amount of investment that our council brought via RCGF to £500,000. The specific breakdown of that 100,000, I can clarify that for you and provide you that detail.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Another question here relating to Wigtown Old Bank project. My understanding is that the construction work on that project is now complete, but the project is being held up by Scottish Water. Since the turn of the year, the water pipes have been in place. There's a very large hole in the side of the road, and local residents are getting quite annoyed about the delay, not to mention the Development Trust, who have a project there waiting to be occupied. Is there any way pressure can be put on Scottish Water to complete this connection urgently?
We don't actually have a role in the delivery of that project. We're a funder for that project. They have a project manager in place who would deal with those particular issues. But what we'd be happy to do is make inquiries about this and see what progress they've made in resolving it, with a view to exploring whether there is any support that our council can provide in addressing any outstanding issues. But as I say, we don't have a day-to-day role in the project management of that project.
That would be appreciated, Melissa, if you could please.
Thank you, Melissa. I think it's an important point, and I know Councillor McComb has been contacted, as have all the elected members, about the issues with Scottish Water. The community are desperately trying to move this forward, so any extra assistance the council can do on this matter would be greatly appreciated. Just on a similar point, on Councillor McComb's questions, there was mention there of projects and funding through SOCI. Now, I appreciate SOCI is not accountable to the council, it's accountable to government ministers. However, they are going to be delivering projects throughout the region. And my question would be, is there a possibility that we can get updates from SOCI or a report from SOCI to find out what is happening on the ground here in Wigtownshire that can be reported to Area Committee? I appreciate it's not perhaps within your remit, Simon, but if there's any way that information can maybe be fed back into SOCI, because I think it is an important point. We know there's lots of really important, fantastic projects happening, but if elected members aren't made aware of these or given any opportunity to get updates, it makes it very difficult when the community are then coming to us to ask questions and there's not that two-way line of communication. So any thoughts on that would be really appreciated.
Thank you, Chair. I shall ask the questions. As you say, it's not our area of cover, but obviously as another public agency, we'll see if we can see what we can do to get information on collaboration and activities that SOS might be doing within the region.
Thank you. That is much appreciated, because I think, in terms of our economy, it's going to be hugely important. So thank you. Councillor Gusty, I will bring you in next.
Thank you, Chair. Now, as we've been going along, I've got bullet points. I've got a bit of a scattergun of different points here, so please bear with me. So going back to the George, I agree with Willie's frustration the frustration for us is that the public look to us, 4 elected members, and think that we're a bunch of bozos, effectively, for taking on the George Hotel and not doing anything with it, and we're still sat with it, and all we seem to be doing is talking. That's what the public say to me every day. They're like, what are you doing with that? And they think we are personally accountable for it. So I get the frustration, Wally gets the frustration, Ross gets it, Tommy gets it, and it's actually quite soul-destroying some days that you feel like you can't actually achieve anything with it. So I'm glad to see that we've got something going on here. But moving on. So the Smart Group was mentioned earlier on. Smart Group was created by the council, well, it was created by the council and councillors to create a feedback for the Shrine community back to the council. The councillors have since, from what I can understand, been kind of frozen out of that. So what are the, I'm guessing that the council officers still have an active and pretty fluid communication channel with the Smart Group, and going from the conversation that's been going on, I believe that to be the case, but could you confirm that? And could you confirm what projects these are actually focusing on, just so that the members know? And another thing that I've got here is I was contacted, well, I've been contacted by Aldi Superstores. They've been in, well, you'll know that they're going for a site in Castle Douglas. I think the next aspect, the next place we're going to be looking at is Stranraer. And could we, I don't know, they'll be wanting officer support, I imagine, when it comes to finding a space and a place in Stranraer. And we've got an East Pier project. Is it possible for us to reach out to Aldi and take a look at placement for them within that project, or are we jumping the gun? SOSE were mentioned. I done an interview with SOSE yesterday for my own small business, and if I'm being honest, I think that every question that they asked me missed the point of small business in a wee place like Stranraer. It seemed like it was all aimed at mid-tier or big business in the likes of Dumfries or a city or a big town, not a wee free-man enterprise. Another aspect that I've got here is the repeater station. We've not seen or heard anything about the repeater station in years, and that is still a big eyesore in the town. It's still a big thing that's talked about in the town. I would like to see it back on this report to see if we've got any movement, see if we can actually do something with it. I mean, I would like to see someone come back on that. And another aspect here that I've got, another bullet point, is back when the barrier was put on at the West Pier, we were showing pictures of buildings that were, well, we were showing what could happen, and we were showing buildings that could be put in, etc., along where the white wall is, and we were showing like a kind of master plan. Is that master plan that was shown to us then, is that incorporated into this full Stranraer Marina expansion project?
Thank you, Councillor Gusty. There's an awful lot in there, and certainly what I would maybe suggest is your ward updates from your ward officer would probably be able to assist in much of those questions. But clearly we do have council officers here. So what I will do is I will maybe pass over to Simon to bring in anybody who he may think is able to answer some of those questions. And if anybody is not, that they can perhaps be included in your ward updates for future. But I'll pass over to Simon to see if you're able to give us a response. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. And please bear with me, Councillor Gusty, if I've missed anything, then obviously please feel free to sort of contact me out with the meeting. In relation to the George Hotel, I'll bring Melissa and Sarah Jane in just a little bit in relation to their engagement with the Smart Group and obviously how that is moving forward. Given obviously the contact with Aldi Superstore, yes, I think sort of obviously if there's contact details that you've got in relation obviously to their development, if you could pass that across to myself, and I will pass that across to David Gardner, who's dealing with obviously any inward investment opportunities to see whether that could be aligned with any sort of sites that we have within sort of the Stranraer area. In relation to the repeater station, obviously you mentioned that's no longer on the committee report. There was obviously a members' seminar yesterday in relation to vacant and derelict land and buildings that obviously sort of the council's looking at developing a strategy, and I'm pondering whether Jamie Little, who's leading on that, might be sort of a key point of contact to obviously ensure that we can identify how the repeater station can move forward with these things. So I think that sort of is something we can do in terms of moving forward. And in relation to the points raised around obviously the master plan that was created for Stranraer some years ago in relation to buildings down by the harbour, there is some of that work will be delivered through the Stranraer Marina project. There is some dry side facilities that we're looking at, and we've just appointed, or in the process of appointing, a design team, and we've got a tender exercise live at this moment in time. So we'll look at obviously how that can be developed over the next couple of months to create obviously the full business case for Borderlands and what actual dry side facilities will be there. I don't know if Sarah Jane or Melissa would just like to talk about the smart group quickly.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, I have been engaging with the smart group since I began work on the George Hotel. They will be involved in the key stakeholder group moving forward for the George, but I'm also in discussions with them about place plan development and an action plan moving forward for the whole town. That will involve our place team as well, not just myself, but we are trying to get cohesive movement on engagement, consultation, and then development of proposals moving forward for the whole of Stranraer, and ensuring that our agencies and the community's agencies are all brought together to in answer to your question, Councillor Justy, we are in regular contact with the smart group and are trying to keep that relationship moving forward to ensure that everyone is involved.
That's great, thanks, Sarah Jane. One comeback to Simon's report, sorry, Chair, through you. When was the repeater station taken off the reports? And where was that agreed, sorry?
Thank you, Chair, through yourself. I'd need to sort of seek further clarification on that, Councillor Gusty. I don't have that detail to hand, but I will find that out and come back to you unless Melissa's got her hand raised and if she's able to answer that one.
I'm not able to answer that specifically, Chair, but perhaps I could just clarify. The project development team, we work on projects that are brought to us by others, where we assemble a funding package and support those projects to become investment ready. Where nobody has approached my team about the repeater station with a project that they are seeking funding for, so we're unable to provide an update on that because it's just not really been on our horizon. As I say, we're not in a position to go and identify vacant and gap sites and come up with end uses and then take forward and deliver projects. Our focus since the restructure that we've had a couple of years ago is specifically to support others to get their funding and to help get those projects ready to go forward with the funding packages in place. So as I say, some of these we can try and find out the answers for councillors on where those projects are, but some of them we're not aware of them because nobody has approached us. They haven't figured in our caseload at all. So that's really the answer of where we are with it.
Thank you. I don't know, Sarah Jane, if there's anything more you wish to add. I would just sort of point out that we're looking at the 6-monthly report of the performances at this point. So there's lots of pertinent issues here, and I think this is where the area committee has a really important role here, and we can ask specific points. Those who don't sit on economy and resources may not have the opportunity to ask these points. So, I think it is important that we're able to discuss this fully. But I see Councillor Scobie, you were looking to come in on a point of clarification. Can I bring you in? And then if there's anything else that you want to maybe add, Sarah Jane, because I do see your hand up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. A number of points of clarification. Just to come back and something that David, and I'm pleased to see David has thrown his weight behind the George Hotel. The 2012 document he refers to was presented to the Council, and it was in relation to a particular building that was only a stone throw away for the East Pier, and the Council deemed that it was out with the parameters or the master plan at the time for the East Pier. And if you think where the building is and has been bought and turned back into a dwelling, it was only a stone throw away. So the short-sightedness was on the part of the Council at the time. So that just clarifies. I'm quite happy to share that document with all members. And as I said earlier, it's a blueprint. And pleased to see Sarah Jane, Melissa and Simon's team are engaging with a wider community and not just a narrow part of engagement with the full community. Just on the repeater station, rather than look to see when it was taken off, when are we going to get it put back on as a project? And I'm sure Jim will confirm, or any others that attended yesterday's meeting. I raised this point with Jamie, so it would be good for the economic development team to tie in with Jamie, because I did ask the question in terms of our one of the MSPs, who I believe is Emma, and whether indeed she's going forward on a private member's bill on derelict properties. And it's not just the repeater station, but it's also the arches that is becoming a particular problem. And we've got to try and encourage private owners to try and bring those properties up to a standard that's acceptable, and to bring them back into use for whatever that use may be, whether it's housing or whatever. So I think the repeater station, and for the team maybe to tie in with Jamie Little, to see how we bring that back, rather than worry about when was it taken off. Let's get it back on the agenda under the derelict properties, and if there's grants available to try and induce these private owners to come forward and bring them back, because they can be, or we'll end up with George Hotel 2 in one of them if they're not there already. So in that respect, Chair, it's just that clarification, and happy to share that document.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Sarah Jane, you were indicating previously you wanted to come in. Your camera's still on. I don't know if you are still looking to come in at this point. Yeah.
Councillor, just a very, very quick point. I've recently been involved in neighbourhood consultation regarding the George with the local ward officer, Kerry Monteith, and the repeater station did come up regularly in conversation. Kerry confirmed that that building is indeed in private ownership, and that the owner is not interested in engaging. For whatever reason, they own the building and are not interested in developing a project at this time, and that was why I think no more work has been done. So from our point of view, that would be why it's not on the books.
Thank you.
Chair, do you mind
I think
if I come back?
Oh no, absolutely, Councillor Scobie, come back in
and
if you like.
For Sarah Jane, we for the local members, we all know that the private owner is someone, I believe, based in London, who has not wanted to engage. But if there was grants available, it might. I've already made the point. It might entice the individual to come forward if he thought that, or she thought there was, grants available. So it's how we approach the individual, and we've now got an opportunity under the derelict properties grant that Jamie gave a good presentation on yesterday, and we've got to take advantage of some of these grants that are coming forward. It only seems to be local government that doesn't have any money, but there's thousands and thousands and millions of pounds sloshing about if only we can get our hands on it.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. So I think there's a few points that we have raised that can be absolutely taken forward from today. I mean, going back to the very start there was the comments on how we can identify the progress of projects through the KPIs and such like. There's also, I think I would absolutely encourage all members to engage with the derelict and property and land project and strategy going forward. As Councillor Scobie pointed out there was a very good seminar with the lead officer yesterday, and we have been having our Ward 1 and 2 updates, which I think are very, very welcome. So turning to the report right in front of us just now in item 5, we have been asked to consider the economy and resource area-based successes and developments and the key successes in the report, and we've been asked to consider any aspects of performance to be referred to relevant future committees. I think we have identified a few key points there, and I think if that's been captured and Simon, you're happy to take those back, I would just ask if members are happy to note these 2 points.
Could we have read back what's been noted as taken forward to various committees? I've got the timetable, timescale table to be included in the agenda that Simon's accepted. There is the large housing need. Maybe Claire could read back what's been.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I've certainly made a number of notes throughout discussions. I've got a number of points of information to be provided back to members on the CARS project, progress on place plans, query on Glentrule Hive funding. There's requests to improve the presentation of future reports, the example given the timescales of projects. There's a request for the SHIP to consider larger properties to address the shortages, and there's a couple of properties being raised as possibilities for derelict properties projects, and there's also a query on Scottish Water and the Wigtown Old Bank project.
Are members satisfied that that's captured all the pertinent points that have been raised?
Councillor McComb.
Thank you. Was there not a point about requesting SOSI to provide an update on funding?
Yeah, I think there was actually discussion about it was a reason that it's a reminder for myself actually, Councillor McComb. The SOSI providing updates at area committees has been raised as part of the area committee's review, just as a wider matter as well. So yes. I can give you confirmation that that's been looked at.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Councillor McComan, and that's a point that Simon had confirmed that he would take forward as well. So if members are satisfied, if we're happy to note those 2 recommendations and move on to item number 6, and I would just say thank you to the officers for coming to committee today to be able to answer these questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So moving on to item number 6, this is our Education and Learning 6 months assessment of business plans, and the performance covers the period from the 1st of April to the 30th of September 2021. We do have Jim Brown with us. I see you've got your camera on there, Jim, so thank you. And I would also just sort of note as a side to this report that I'm really pleased to see that we have 2 youth councillors now appointed to the Education and Learning Committee. This was a recommendation that was supported by the Area Committee, and certainly I'll look forward to seeing them in attendance at our next committee for that one. I'd also like to say thank you to Jim for providing members with the update on the Pupil Equity Fund as an action from November's committee. And I do note that in paragraph 3.11.1 makes reference to our national performance data, which was only published at the end of February, and that an area level report will be emailed, and we will get a chance thereafter to discuss it at Wigtown area level. So I will pass over to yourself, Jim, to see if there's anything that you would like to add to your report today, and then I'll open it up to members for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Chair. Good to see everybody, and I wholeheartedly agree with your comment there, Chair, around the Youth Council. Really welcome the impact of those folk. Other than that, happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Now, I don't see anybody in the chat, so I don't know if there's anybody in the room that wishes to come in and ask any relevant questions at this point. If I don't, and members are happy to speak. Hello, Councillor Scobie, are you looking to come in?
Please, Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
And Jim is well aware of the question I'm about to ask, because I've asked it of him at the education, as I have of the director, and it's in relation to additional support for learners, key documents that are required, and I'm pleased to note from the meetings I've been having with the acting head teacher at Stranraer Academy, then things are progressing. But, you know, I think we need to reach a point, because if it was at Stranraer Academy, I would imagine that it may be in other areas. So it's really to include this in Jim's report, to see that we are up to speed, because there are legal documents in terms of child plan, corporate support plans, individual education plans. We need to see that all these documents are up to date, and that we are delivering for those kids who are are requiring that additional support, particularly coming out of COVID, because I do, and I've been at parent council meetings where pupil equity funds are being well used and quite innovatively. But we do need to make sure that we've got appropriate, and I did say at the budget that we're getting 10 extra teachers, and I would hope that we start to address those kids who are requiring that additional support. I just want that assurance for Jim, and that we are making progress and coming up to speed with the legal documents that are required in the schools for kids who require that additional support.
Thank you,
Councillor
Scobie.
Jim.
Beg your pardon, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Kirby. I can reassure you we are making progress, and if you wish for that to be included as a single line effectively in the next area committee, I'll be happy to do so. Thank you.
I think that would be welcome. I know at Audit Risk and Scrutiny, one of the requests I put forward was how we are looking at supporting our learners, especially when we're looking at those with the likes of dyslexia who may require assistance from Call Scotland. So if there's further information that can be disseminated down to area level, that would be really helpful. But obviously that would be a separate piece of work within Audit Risk and Scrutiny. Councillor McComb, you were looking to come in.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at the school exclusion rates for looked after children, Jim, and the target there is 40. But the school exclusion rates for every other pupil, the target is only 11.55. Why the large discrepancy?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The discrepancy in terms of the target is because in some cases the level of challenge that youngsters bring, bearing in mind the circumstances they may have faced. It is our ambition to reduce exclusion rates so that there is not that discrepancy. However, we're obviously doing a piece of work that you'll be aware of to look at how we ensure people have a curriculum, have approaches to pedagogy that meet their individual needs. That's a Scotland-wide initiative. It's born out of the Morgan report, All Our Learners, and I wholeheartedly welcome your awareness, your clocking of that difference. And obviously, aspirationally, that is what we need to do to ensure youngsters are not excluded, but that alternatives to exclusion within schools are found. But thank you for your comment.
So I take it the long-term aspiration, Jim, is to work towards a single target for exclusion.
I think sometimes I'll equivocate on that one. I do apologise, Councillor. I think sometimes we can see something like exclusion in a very standard way. The point about exclusions is it's not a punishment. It's an opportunity to, for example, bring together a multi-agency planning group to look at putting something in place to support the young person so that those responses of the stimulus was are not the same moving forward. Sometimes you need that break in the system for all parties to say, let's have a look at what's happened. This is not a punishment, it's not punitive, and that's absolutely clear. It's not a punishment, it's an opportunity for a planning exercise to be done. And in some cases, that is absolutely necessary to give a bit of breathing space, to get people around the table so that the response made is not one that's just knee-jerk or by all means a single agency response. It's that we've had opportunities to link with our partners so that we get a meaningful plan in place. So I'm not going to preempt that, you can understand, by saying it's the same for everyone, because we're all different. And in this case, we're trying to make sure when youngsters have particular challenge and particular barriers and come with potentially trauma, we still have got opportunities to respond in the most appropriate way for those youngsters. But I absolutely share your, if you like, your ideological position that if it's seen as a negative thing, we shouldn't have two tiers on it. It isn't, by me, seen as a negative thing. It's a planning tool. However, I agree with your general drive that we need to reduce that number as far as possible. So we only use it when we absolutely need to.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both. Jim, were you wanting... No, your mic's gone off there. Apologies, Councillor Scobie. I hadn't realised you would look to come back in, so I'll jump back to yourself. Thank you.
No apology necessary, Chair. It's actually on a different issue. So, I know in 3.15.1, you know, the schools that are recognised there for their climate change endeavours, and which ones there, along with Liswalt, Kirkham and Patrick. And it's pleasing to note, just, you know, that the Eco Committee, those trio schools are being recognised by world leaders in the whole climate change. But it's coming back to our earlier remarks in terms of Liswalt, and on the back of the two curling achievements, two of them went to Liswalt School, and it's disappointing to note that the Royal Mail is not allowing them to paint the gold post box out at Liswalt. But I would hope as an education that we would encourage and support the school, perhaps in maybe painting the gates gold, or doing something to recognise that the two of the gold and silver medalists actually attended that primary school. So in that respect, I would hope that Jim could take back and see what we can do working with the school on the back of the disappointment that the Royal Mail, that was something that was associated with the London Olympics, will not allow them to paint the post box, but we can maybe get some recognition from the school in terms of maybe painting gates or something to recognise the achievements of the two who attended there as pupils.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Is that something that can be fed back via yourself, Jim,
Thanks,
please?
Thanks, Councillor Scobie. What a lovely idea. I will give Ms Bailey a phone call to put to her your suggestion, and whether it's exactly as you said, the gates, but you know, I take your point, it's not necessarily didactically the gates, it's some visible expression of celebrating a phenomenal set of achievements. A conversation with her teacher around that. Thank you for the thought.
Thank you. Councillor Ingalls, you're looking to come in, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Page 48, the Douglas 3.11.1 regarding the youth workforce school coordinators, which appear to be set up at Douglas Stewart. Unless I'm missing something here, is this something that's fairly recent, or has it been? Have these coordinators been imposed for a wee while, Jim? Being a local business, I'm constantly looking to recruit apprentices through the school, and I have had no contact whatsoever from the school regarding that. So maybe that's one point. Page 49, I'd just like to record my thanks to the New Shoot Initiative team who worked on the Douglas Park Path project, and the team that were involved in that scooped the Environmental Champion Award and the overall Young Persons Award recently, which is a fantastic achievement for the youngsters from Douglas Ute High School, and Katrina Dick, the project worker there. Question on 312.3, the exclusion rate in the Wigtown area has increased to 9.23%. Do you see this as a, an increasing trend, given that it was previously 3.65? If you could maybe give me an answer to that one. That's it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Ingalls. Jim.
Thank you, Councillor. Number of points there. Well, in fact, it's the two. It's the DYW point and then the exclusion rate, I think, Councillor. But come back to me if I've missed something there. The Developing Young Workforce, that came out of the Woods Commission work, which must now be 8, 9, 10 years old, about how we make sure that youngsters between 16 and 24 are in some kind of gainful activity. It means that we've got that link to things like Youth Guarantee Partnership in every school. It's not new in terms of this year. It had happened previously, but it was done in a slightly different model, almost, I don't think they'd have called it a pilot, but in that sort of way of, let's try this out and let's see how this what this delivers. This year it has been much more streamlined, so there's been if you like, a template, central template for what is expected in each school. And I take your point, and I'll certainly bring that to the coordinator, our local education coordinator of that, to be reaching out within communities to local employers in terms of those youngsters who are leaving. You'll appreciate that there's quite a lot within this, councillor, and particularly what we're looking at is things like My World of Work. So in other words, how early are we starting talking to young people about the workplace? It's not just about when they suddenly are at that interface. It's actually making sure that all youngsters in all our schools at all ages understand what the workplace is, the richness of it, and where they see themselves. So that is a developing piece of work, councillor, and I'm more than happy to link with the officer involved, ask them what the nature of the connection to local business is, and to ask if that can't be prioritised. In terms of exclusion rates, yeah, now you're right, it is an increase, and that's not to be welcomed in the blunt way. I think that undoubtedly reflects, I can't say causation on this one. I don't know why those numbers might go up or down in the short term. What we know is over the long piece, 10-year piece, there's a significant falling trend in exclusions. That's not by chance. That's because we understand what happens and why these things generally happen in the round, and we're looking at pieces of practice, let's say better relationships, better learning, such that we are preempting those situations far more. We're also seeking other solutions when challenge happens. So as I said to Councillor McComb, there is a general disinclination to use that. It's not punishment, it's a way that we can plan. However, your question stands. Why was it so much lower the previous year and it's gone up again? I strongly suspect that's very much connected to COVID, not least in terms of comparing years where we had differential rates of attendance. Remember, as far as I'm aware, that is a it's a per thousand rate, but it's not in terms of, how can I say, it's not scaled for how many of the 195 days of the school year were attended by pupils. So in a year where there were fewer possible attendance dates because of COVID in this case, that will inevitably pan out to a reduced number. I think what we're also seeing, councillor, is that COVID had a massive impact on our communities, as we all know, had a massive impact on young people. Some young people have come back. They've struggled in some cases with the social interactions, and I think that without knowing the detail of it, I can do a trawl, but without knowing the detail, my strong suspicion is that reflects the fact that in some cases young people have initially struggled with reintegrating into a more normal model. And as such, I am optimistic, I'm confident that that trend will not continue, and the long-term, decade-long trend will reassert itself.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you both. I don't see any other members looking to come in at this point, so thank you, Jim, for the report and your responses on those questions. And if we move to the recommendations, if members are happy to do so, we are being asked in 2.1 to review the 6-month summary of performance. In 2.2, we are considering the area-based achievements and developments. And 2.3, consider any aspects of performance to be referred to relevant future committees. Are members happy to note those three?
Noted.
Thank you, David. Great, moving on to item 8. I am conscious of the time. It's 11:30. We have been going an hour and a half, and I'm conscious in terms of comfort breaks and those members who are on screen. But if we continue at this point and then perhaps take a short 15-minute break after the next item, if members are happy to do so at that point, just to alleviate any eye strain or anything that members might be facing online. So item 7 we are looking now, and this is the community's 6-month assessment of business plans for 2019 to 2023. And again, this is the same performance period from 1st of April to the 30th of September 21. And we have a report by the Director of Communities. Now, again, I'm aware we've got quite a few number of officers online that are looking to answer any questions if members want to raise any issues. And certainly it is, once again, a really comprehensive report before us. There is an awful lot that has been happening locally, and certainly just to highlight a few points on the report, we do have, as David mentioned, the Working with Newton Stewart initiative, not necessarily on that particular path, but certainly in terms of the inclusive play park, which is very welcomed. We also have in here, which I'm delighted to see, about the number of adults participating to Council's physical activity sessions, and I don't know if any of the other members present took part in the promoted 500 Northwest Walk. Certainly I was part of a team, and we did manage to combinedly walk our 500 miles around the Northwest Coast. My request would be, can we do perhaps the Southern Upland Way next time, or perhaps round our Rins Coastal Galloway path? That would be great for next time round. But I will maybe open it up to officers if there's anything that they would like to add at this point, and then bring members in. Nope, I don't see any officers looking to come in. As I say, I'm looking at my screen. I know we've got Councillor Scobie. Right, I'll just go straight to members' questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's on page 64. It's Flood Prevention Scheme work, item 4 and 6. And this has been a topic at the Communities Committee for I don't know how long, in terms of our delay in getting to both these for reasons given at the committee. I just want an assurance that we are in time, that we will be delivering this come April, May, and that we will see Yellow Jackets on site developing this project in Station Street, behind the SAI building, and indeed that we will have the works in item 6 completed by that. I see James coming in there to give me that reassurance.
James, are you happy to come in?
Thank you, Chair, through yourself. I've actually got Duncan with me as well, Councillor Scobie, and Duncan's leading on this, as you're aware. So can I pass that to Duncan, and I'll just go back onto mute.
Thank you, James. Through yourself, Chair, yes, Councillor Scobie is indicated in the report. We have the target dates for work item 4 is May this year, and work item 6 is July this year. That's the dates that we're working to in our programme. Work Item 6 is the site of interest for yourself, I think, particularly around Station Street. So that is progressing. As we've explained, we have a SEPA complex licence to process to go through, which we are endeavouring to do at the moment. We have that that was submitted in December, and that's got a 4-month period, sort of 4 months period for SEPA to process that with ourselves. We're engaging with them and we're making progress on it. Discussions around sort of fish passage through the bund that we'd construct, that's a sort of level of discussion with themselves at the moment. So we're hopeful that that's going to go favourably, and we'll conclude that in due course. Network Rail discussions are progressing well as well, because the land in question butts against their site and it's their culvert. These are the culverts in question at Station Road Station Street are the Network Rail property, but they are giving us positive soundings from their side in terms of how that our proposals fit with their needs of their asset. So yeah, we're hoping that that's going to conclude shortly as well. And other items, including additional sort of ground investigation works and some further topographical survey, but that's been completed, and that is going to inform the modelling. So we have full details to satisfy SEPA on that front. But yeah, so we are working away on those timelines as indicated in the report.
Just to come back, Chair, if I could, and again, I think it's the first time I've seen July. I thought they were both going to be starting in May, which is disappointing. But not with, so I would hope we could still maybe even accelerate that period or that date of July. But in the interim, should there be any flooding, and I'm sure each of the residents in Station Street go to bed hoping that it'll never happen again. It's the flooding, there was temporary measures. I don't think we've had a need to use them, but are they still in place? Should they be required? I see both nodding, so I'm pleased to see that James and Duncan nodding there.
Yeah, through yourself, Chair. Yes, Councillor Scobie. I think we reported that we around about December time we had reached agreement and got some measures in place so that we have a system that we can call upon, whereby if there's an event prior to the permanent works being installed, we can call upon those interim measures, which will have an effect to help safeguard the properties downstream of the railway line culverts. I don't know if James wants to come in further on that.
I think that covers it very much, Duncan. Yeah, we have a system there with the local roads office to put measures in place if we get a warning of impending heavy rainfall.
Thank you both on that one. Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Does that answer your question?
It answers the question,
yep.
Isn't it? I would prefer we were doing the work just now, but nevertheless, that's what we've been given. But I would like to see it accelerated if at all possible.
Yep, no, I appreciate that. Just while you're on camera at this point and discussing floods, can I just add in at this point, we do have mention of the Newton Stewart Flood Protection Scheme, and I appreciate that a report went to Communities Committee. Now, I don't sit on Communities Committee, so this is my only opportunity to ask questions, and I think it's important in the same way that we were able to dive in terms of ENR and what's happening. So can I just ask for confirmation of where we are for the Newton Stewart Flood Protection Scheme? Are we still on track that will be moving to a flood order for this year? Because I believe that was the timeline that was published. That is referenced in the committee report of December 21, but the detail isn't actually published in this report before us. So it's just really to confirm for members and for the public as to where we are with the Newton Stewart Flood Scheme while we're on the subjects of floods. Thank you.
Yes, of course, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, I mean it's a problem with the reporting periods that are somewhat historical. What I can confirm is that the two elements I think that we've been progressing with the Newton Stewart scheme, and I believe my colleagues have been keeping local members involved. So first of all, survey works that were undertaken following the public consultation last year to provide more detailed information on the extent of the defences in terms of heights and locations. That survey work was completed at the end of January. I think we'd contacted elected members to advise that would be happening. SWECO, our consultant, have taken those and are producing updated drawings that we will use for future direct engagement again with the 70 or so properties that are directly affected by the works. So that's ongoing at the moment. That's with an aim for a publication, be able to publish and come back to committee for that decision in June of this year is the dates that I believe we are sharing at the moment with members. In terms of the other matter, which I know is obviously of importance to the community with regards to the Riverside Path, the co-path, SWECO have been awarded that element of work to design up options to take that work forward in terms of an early repair works to that. So at the moment we're waiting on a timeline coming back from them, and I would hope that Michael, the project manager there, who you all know well, will be back in touch with you shortly with a timeline for that element of design works. We would obviously then need to look for how the funding for that, if appropriate, was taken forward. But that's a discussion for a later date once we've got a better idea what's required. So hopefully that's useful for you, Chair.
Thank you, James. Yes, I think it is an issue, and I came to it when we were discussing the ENR. We're looking for information now, but this is a performance report from 1st of April to the 30th of September. But then when the report references reports beyond the 30th of September, it does open the opportunity to have these points. So I do appreciate that. So I've got Councillor Ingalls who's looking to come in terms of Newton Stewart Inclusive Play Park. I think, David, if you would like to come in, I think that would be entirely appropriate. Yeah, and then I'll bring in Councillor McComb. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I didn't declare an interest in this one because it's really just for noting or review. But I can update the committee on the situation at Newton Stewart Douglas Park Inclusive Play Park. The work's due to start on the actual play area this month at some point, and that should be completed within 10 to 12 weeks, I think they've given us as a timescale. We've run into a wee bit of difficulty with the Changing Places toilet because the funders are looking for ownership or a long-term lease on the bit of ground that the Changing Places toilet is going to sit on, which has caused major issues. The funding packages were at risk at one point, simply because of the processes we've got to go through to achieve that long-term lease. But I think the business development manager's working on that now, and it looks as though we're beginning to make headway there. We would like to think, as an initiative, we're going to complete that sometime by the end of this summer. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. Councillor McComb.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at what's listed as an improvement project, the support for the rollout of community public access defibrillators. I'm aware that a number of communities went to considerable efforts to fundraise in order to install defibrillators. And I'm a wee bit puzzled by this improvement project. It states 75% progress has been achieved. Could someone give me detailed information on what it involves?
Thank you, Councillor McComb. I don't know who on the call is able to come forward with that one. Liz, are you able to come in and speak on this one in terms of communities?
Thank you, Chair. It's actually a project for governance and assurance, but we can certainly provide you with the detailed information about why that 75%. Oh, I see Sandra's here, so she may be able to give you the detailed information right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra.
Apologies, Chair. Sorry, I was just about to say what Liz was saying. I can get that information from you from the service manager involved with that, which would be Martin Ogilvie, and revert back.
Thank you.
So
Jim, is that okay?
Just to confirm, Sandra, you're not actually physically funding the installation of defibrillators for communities which don't currently have them.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor, I don't have the information on that. I believe that's the case, but that is a project that is led by the Community Safety and Resilience Manager. So I will ask Martin if he can possibly revert back.
Thank you very much, Sandra.
Thank you, Councillor McComb. If I could just briefly add into that point as well, when you're looking to get that information back, could we please get any confirmation if there's funding to replace pads? Because I'm aware that it's an ongoing cost that community councils are having to, find funding for, sometimes coming out of their funds that come from the council to administer their activities. So I believe that the pads themselves can be really quite expensive, and it is an ongoing cost. So if there's any support available, I think that would be really welcomed. But yeah, I think that's useful. Thank you.
Chair,
Councillor, yes.
It would be useful to know if there is an ongoing source of funding for this purpose.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor McComb. Councillor Ingalls, would you like to come in next, please?
Yes. Just a quick question on page 64, Chair, on water course assessments. Can I ask how often water courses are checked? Is it yearly or bi-yearly? And are the reports available once those water courses have been checked? And if there is, are they available to community councils? Thank you.
Thank you. I see James has put his camera on, so I will hand over to him. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, through yourself. Councillor Ingalls, the requirements under the legislation require us actually to assess bodies of water and carry out works of clearance and repair should that assessment determine that that would substantially reduce the risk of flooding. So it doesn't mean that we inspect water courses per se. Principally, our assessment of water courses is around our higher risk locations, which are generally culverted sections of water courses, particularly where there's a screen on a culvert that, should the screen not be cleared on a regular basis, it could lead to overtopping and subsequently flooding. Depending on the type of the nature of the water course and the risks that are associated with it, the inspection frequency would be less or more. So if we take some of the smaller water courses in Stranraer, for example, we do CCTV surveys of those 6 to 10 yearly kind of thing, just to check, unless we get reports of particular issues. And then we would go out and do an inspection and may do further assessment. But the screens, for example, would be maybe inspected on a weekly basis during the winter time and a monthly basis in the summertime. The schedule, which is published under, I think it's section 59 of the Flood Risk Management Act. I'm scraping my brain here to remember if it's section 59, but I think so. That's something that's available on our website. But if there's particular detail, then Brian Templeton, team leader of Flood Risk Management, can answer specific questions on specific sections of water course. But you'll appreciate we have, I think, in the order of 26,000 kilometres of water bodies, as they're called, within the region. So that's not something we would do inspections of. We would just say, look, our assessment is desk-based to say that these aren't inspected, but where this water course runs through a town or near properties or roads or such like, we may do more inspection as such. So hopefully that's useful to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you, James. The question had to be asked.
Yep, pleasure, not a problem at all, sir.
Thank you. Thank you both. I don't see any other members looking to come in at this point. I would just sort of raise myself the fact that communities committees is has such a huge remit, I think is quite clear and evident in the report before. So it covers a huge amount of areas. And certainly having members briefing sessions does really help. I know Karen Brownlee, who's on the call today, gave us a members update in terms of what was happening across our cemeteries and headstones. And I do maybe wonder whether it would be useful, in a similar vein to Economy and Resources, have a regular update to Ward 1 and 2 members, whether we could perhaps consider a similar briefing session, not necessarily on a monthly basis, but once a quarter, just so members have that opportunity, because there's a huge amount happening on the ground, and I think it is important for those members who maybe perhaps don't sit in communities have opportunities to find out what's going on, although of course papers are always available to all members to have a read. I do want to also, before we move to the recommendation, just put on record the congratulations to the team across the council for their winning of the COSLA Excellence Award, which was for stronger communities, especially through COVID. I think the council often is criticised, especially on social media at times. However, I think it's really important to recognise what a fantastic team that we have, and to get that national recognition in, across every single local authority that Dumfries and Galloway came out top, I think is absolutely imperative that we put that on the records and say thank you to everyone who was involved with that. So moving on at that point, let's move to the recommendations on item number 7, if there's no other contributions from members at this point. And we are being asked to review the 6-monthly summary of performance for the Wigtown area. In 2.2, we're considering the area-based achievements and developments. And in 2.3, consider any aspects of performance to be referred to relevant future committees. Are members happy to note those 3?
Noted.
Don't see it. Noted. Thank you very much. So I am conscious of the time. It is 11:51 at the moment. What I'm minded to do is maybe just take a 9-minute break till 12 o'clock to give members and staff a chance to have a comfort.
Can we push on, Chair, rather than take a break?
Can we have what? Sorry, Councillor Scobie?
Can we push on and go through the agenda?
Well, I would like to take a comfort break for 10 minutes, 8 minutes now, and we will reconvene at 12 o'clock. I think normal good practice guides for meetings and online meetings are that we should be taking regular breaks. So that would be an hour and 50 minutes that we have been going at this point. So if we take 8 minutes, short break, and we'll come back at 12 o'clock. Okay. Thank you, members.
Grand Chair, thanks.
That's you live. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members. So let's continue with Wigtown Area Committee this morning, and let's move on to item number 8, which is the disposal of Cairnryan House in Cairnryan, Stranraer. And we have in front of us before that we're being asked to note that Cairnryan House was declared surplus at Social Work Services Committee, and we're being asked whether we wish any other groups to be consulted with regards to potential community use beyond those included in the report. The groups recommended for consultation to date are Cairnryan and Bloom, Foundation Scotland, the Scottish Women's Institute, the local community council. Now, we also have Nick Lane on the line today, so thank you, Nick, to answer any questions or address any comments that members may have. So I don't know, Nick, if you do have any updates that you want to pass on at this point, so I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, just to tell members, or advise members rather, that we're meeting with Cairnryan Community Council on Friday. There's quite a few of them coming along to inspect the building. We have been in contact with the other groups as listed in the report, and we still await response from them.
Thank you, Nick. I would, before I bring in any members, although I don't see anybody looking to come in at this point, perhaps add in, although perhaps I should declare an interest, Wigtownshire Women's Aid may be an organisation to consult. I don't know at this point whether it would even be something that the organisation would look to be involved with, but you know, when you are looking to those wider community groups, I think Wigtownshire Women's Aid may be one of those groups potentially. So I don't know if any members are looking to come in. I don't see any in the chat. And if not, and we're content to keep the list as is, and there's no other comments that we want to be making at this point in time. Nope, I'm not seeing anyone coming in. So thank you, Nick, for the update at that point. So we'll move just direct to the recommendations, which are to note that Cairnryan House has been declared surplus, to advise if there's any further groups, and to note that the Community Council and groups have been consulted. So if members are happy to agree the recommendations.
Great.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. So moving swiftly on, we are moving on to a community asset transfer and request, and this is for London Road playing fields to Wigtownshire Rugby Club. The report is by the Community Planning and Engagement Manager, and we have Kerry Monteith, who is here to answer any members' questions or address any members' comments. I would just say that I hadn't realised that the club had been using the site since 1822, so coming up to their second centenary, which is quite incredible, really. And I know that Kerry has been working with the club to develop and refine their business plan, and that the club feel that the social value of their business plan and the social value engine indicates a value of £6.80 for every £1 the council invests by discount on the property. So, Kerry, I'll maybe pass over to you to see if there's anything that you want to add at this point, and then open it out to members.
Thank you, Chair. There's nothing additional to add, except that you will note that the accounts that are provided are unaudited. The accounts that the Rugby Club have been trying to get the accounts processed for this committee, but unfortunately they're with the accountant, and there's been quite a delay on that due to COVID and a backlog of accounting that the accountant has. So that's the unaudited accounts that we have present in the report.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Kerry. Do any members have any questions at this point? I see, Andrew, your hand's going up. So, Councillor Gussie, I'll pass over to yourself.
Thanks, Chair. I would recommend that we go with option 2, and I would put that to a motion.
I'll second that.
Oh. Okay, thank you, David. So we have got a motion and seconder, but I saw Councillor McComb's hand going up there, so I'll bring Councillor McComb in, if I may.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the bottom of page 95, and it states the land is defined in LDP2 as protected green space. I take it from that statement there would be no possibility whatsoever of housing or other development taking place on the grassland.
Kerry, are you able to confirm that?
Councillor McComb, thank you. Yes, the land is protected area of green space. Unfortunately, I'm not a planning officer, so I don't know the detail of that. But as far as I'm led to believe, that does mean that it's protected from development.
Okay. Does that assist, Jim?
It does indeed assist, because I am aware of other recreational areas of land which have been turned into housing sites. That if there is a prohibition on development, that's fine.
Thank you. I've got one question just in terms of option 2, which has been proposed and seconded already, but it makes reference to the attached condition. Now, those members who do not sit on FPT committee may not be aware that we had quite a long debate last time round about conditions being attached and risks and such like. And I think it would be maybe pertinent to ask the question at this point, if we're attaching this condition, does that pose any risk to the community group? Because I think if there's no risks attached by adding that condition on, I think that would really be helpful to ascertain that now before we put that recommendation to FPT. So are we aware of any risks, or is this a risk-free condition that we're looking to attach?
The community stated in their report they would be happy to have conditions that you know, their usage of that site is for the purposes of playing fields. And the condition that we have put into option 2 is to allow, you know, the playing fields to be returned to the council should it not be successful. However, the risk is very low to the community group, as you know, as the report states, they've been playing on that site for a very long time. The rugby club has been in existence for a very long time, and it's unlikely that, you know, that condition would pose any risk. It's in proportionate to their ask.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. David, Councillor Ingalls, you're looking to come in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Really, just to go back to Councillor McComb's point, it does state the LDP2. Now, my question would be, the next LDP, LDP3, is that likely that open space could be taken out of that LDP and it be made available for housing? And if that's the case, should there be a condition in here to say that if we sign this over to the rugby club, then it will always be green open space rather than just included in the LDP2, just in case, to remove that risk that if it goes to LDP3, is there a likelihood that, you know, it could be overturned? I mean, it may well not be, but I'm just asking the question. Maybe something we want to consider.
Thanks, David. I think it is a very pertinent question to be asking, and of course members can feed into LDP3 when we get to that point. But Jamie, I see. Oh no, you're not wanting to come in any longer at this point. Kerry, do you have any comments just in terms of adding an additional condition that the site would remain as a green field site?
I think from what is in the proposal by the rugby playing fields, they are looking at, you know, taking ownership of the site for a community asset, and it's quite clear from the proposal that they intend to use that asset for the purposes of playing sport, obviously with a focus on rugby, but they are looking to bring other sports back into the site, and the intended use is as a playing field. So I wouldn't see that there would be any problem with a condition for that to remain as a playing field. Obviously, they have ownership of part of the site that their clubhouse is on, and I'm sure, you know, as the report alludes to, there is proposals for development of that part of the site, you know, to expand their facilities. to enable female children changing, etc. So I don't think there would be any issue with that, because it's clear from the proposal that, you know, the reason that they wish to take ownership of the site is for the purposes of playing sport.
Thank you, Kerry. I've got Jamie, who is looking to come back in, and I'll come back to yourself, David, if that's okay.
Thanks, Chair.
It's just to say to members, just for reassurance, that in terms of risk, that this is one where Kerry has been working particularly closely with the community group and with the development of their plan. The other group that for 100 years has used this as a playing field, there's no intention beyond that I know of. Members will also be aware that LDP 3 is likely to or can be influenced by place plans as defined by local community groups. And as part of the consultation around this, the development of this business plan, I'm aware, and Kerry will have said it as well, that the group has carried out quite a bit of consultation within the local community around their views of how this land could be best utilised.
Thank you, Jamie. David, were you looking to come in?
I was, Chair. You know, I just think that putting something in option 2 at this stage would then remove any risk of it ever being developed, or even just part of the site being developed, you know, for anything other than a greenfield site and sporting facility. If it's not going to be detrimental, if it's not going to cause them any problems, I mean, goodness knows where we're going to be 10 years from now. It may well be that the rugby club could do a, you know, £250,000, and part of that land would give them that if it was signed over to a developer or whatever it may be. You know, they may look at that and try and influence LDP 2 or LDP 3 or 4 or whatever it is, to include part of it for housing. So I think it's important that we safeguard it as a green area, rather than just assuming that it's always going to be a green area, a green open space. So, you know, I don't know how the other councillors feel on this, but I think it would be useful just to make sure from our perspective that at no point in the future can it ever be developed into anything other than playing fields.
I take your point, Councillor Ingalls, and I think it is important to know LDP2 was in existence for 5 years. LDP3 will actually be a 10-year plan, so you know we are looking at about 12 years ahead, and we don't know where we're going to be. I would maybe seek some governance advice, and unfortunately Jackie has left us as our sort of lead governance advisor, although maybe perhaps Claire, you can keep us right at this point as well. Would it be appropriate at this point to add in potentially a third recommendation that we as an area committee actually request that this site is included as a greenfield site as part of LDP3? Because I appreciate the sort of planning legislation, etc., is almost a separate issue to the community asset transfer, but by ensuring that LDP3 contains this as a greenfield site, which I have no doubt that it would anyway, but it just offers almost a safeguard. I don't know how Councillor Ingalls would feel about that if that was considered a competent additional recommendation at this point. So it wouldn't necessarily be added onto the options, but it would be for the progression of LDP3. Does that, if I could take your advice on that, that would be quite useful.
Okay, what I would say is there's a whole process associated with the development of LDP3, and the agreement of LDP3, like LDP2, I would imagine is finally a full council decision that would agree that plan. It'd be perfectly competent to flag it up at this stage that would be a wish of the area committee to be taken forward through that process. But I'm not a planner, so I wouldn't be able to give any advice beyond that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Claire. David, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think I think from my perspective, what I would like to see here would be that the asset transfer, which means they take ownership of this land, as part of that asset transfer process, there is a condition in there that states that it will always be in its entirety a sporting site, a sporting facility, or a play park, or whatever it may be, and will remain an open space, a green open space. I think it would. I mean, I'm happy to propose that as a third recommendation within option 2, so that we at least capture it now, and there's no risk in the future that it can be overturned or changed. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think, yeah, as Kerry has pointed out, it is in their business plan, but if it is captured as part of option 2, I don't know who would be best. Obviously, Andrew, Councillor Gusty, you had proposed option 2. David had seconded that, but are you happy to have that additional condition attached to option 2?
So, Chair,
as the proposer?
I'm not that worried about development here. I mean, it's not in the spirit of the proposal of the asset transfer. I understand some hesitance from other members that they would want to add something like this. So can we? I don't know. Can we put a burden on the asset transfer that that it can't be used for can't be developed for commercial or residential purposes apart from the. I don't know if the likes of the rugby club needed to extend and maybe put a mug out or something like that, or that like development that was within the parameters of using it as a playing field, if you get what I mean. Does that make sense? I don't know, did I capture that right? Because I don't want us to say no development at all, and then it means if they want to put like some kind of like wooden stands around the sides that they can get spectators in, I don't want to stop that. I don't want to. I can't find the word, sorry, but you know what I mean.
So if we're looking at option 2, I think it is important that the wording is correct on this, absolutely. And there is reference within the report that their plan is to retain this as an open playing field site. There's no plans currently. I appreciate the points made by Councillor Gusty that yes, you don't want to stifle any investment by the club, but equally I think it is important the points raised by Councillor Ingalls that this asset isn't lost, and we as elected members have a really important role to protect these open sites. I think as Councillor McComb referred to, there has been occasions where open sites have then gone on to be sold for housing development. I can think of one perhaps in Dumfries that was quite a contentious issue. So I would perhaps, I don't know if we do have a form of words, who would be best to formulate that point, that those words for additional comments. Again, I've maybe looked to, well, Jamie, I'm getting focused on you with the camera, so I don't know if you can come in and help us with this one.
No, that's fine, Chair. My thoughts on it are, and I'm sure members will put me right if not. If for option 2, if we go down to line 4, the asset and all future costs associated, it would sit with WRFC, and the asset will be retained in perpetuity by the club as green space. I don't know if that quite covers. I see what the nuance that Councillor Giusti is trying to put in there about, if there's a build that's required by the community, but I think that would still come under green space.
I would sort of look to the proposer and seconder of that option. So, Councillor Giusti, are you quite happy to include that, the term retaining green space within the option 2 recommendation?
I don't think it's necessary, but I'm happy to agree it.
Okay, and Councillor Ingalls, are you happy with the wording of that one?
I think so. As long as when we asset transfer this to the rugby club, there is a guarantee that London Road playing fields will always be an green open space with sporting facilities, then I'm happy.
Okay, I mean, I'm certainly happy to support option 2 with the additionality of that word green space, and I do think it would be important, as I said previously, and Claire confirmed that it would be competent to have an additional recommendation that we put on records for LDP3 that this remains as a green open space, because that will go out to full consultation for members and members of the public, and certainly 10 years hence it will also then again go out for full consultation in the development of local plans. So if members are content, and we're happy to go ahead. Yep, David, do you want to come back?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I take Councillor Justice's point. I know that the rugby club have got a development in mind for the clubhouse, which is an extension. And I also note that he's mentioned about, if they needed to build a seating area. Yeah. So development from the point of view of a sporting facility or the rugby club, I think if we can include that within this additional recommendation, so that we're not hamstringing them, but we are still safeguarding the fact that it's a play park or a park and open space that people can use for whatever they feel they need to use it for. But I do take Councillor Justice's point. We don't want to hamstring them if they're wanting to extend their clubhouse or if they need to put a stand up with,
Yeah.
So perhaps Jamie can come in on that.
Yes, please.
Sorry to come in, Chair. If we added to green space, Councillor Ingalls and sporting facility, would that cover?
That does it for me, Chair. Yeah. Thanks, Jamie.
Seems okay here too.
Claire, could you perhaps read out the full version with the additions there, so we've got it clearly captured for the minute as well, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So we've got an amended option to agree to recommend to Finance, Procurement and Transformation Committee that a community asset transfer to Wigtownshire Rugby Football Club is made for the nominal sum of £1. The asset and all future costs associated with it would sit with WRFC, and the asset shall be retained as perpetuity as green space and sporting facility from the date of transfer onwards, with the attached condition: should WRFC be unable to achieve its outcome or is wound up within 5 years of CAT, then arrangements can be made for the recovery of the asset to the local authority.
Thank you, that's much appreciated. If everybody's happy, I've got a thumbs up from David on there, and if members in the room are happy, I think we've come to a sensible way forward on this one. Community asset transfers are often tricky ones, and certainly look forward to the debate at this at Finance and Procurement. So if members are happy to note that, just briefly to go through the recommendations, 2.1 was to consider the proposals, 2.3 was to consider the options as detailed, and 2.4 was to agree the preferred option as detailed by Claire, who's just confirmed with the additional of those 2 extra points on option 2. So are members happy to agree? Oh, Councillor McComb.
Can I ask Claire just once again to read out the wording with regard to that additional condition?
Yeah, sorry, of course. Right, agreed to recommend to Finance, Procurement and Transformation Committee that a community asset transfer to Wigtownshire Rugby Football Club is made for the nominal sum of £1. The asset and all the future costs associated with it would sit with WRFC, and the asset shall be retained as perpetuity as green space and sporting facility from the date of transfer onwards, with the attached condition: should WRFC be unable to achieve its outcome or is wound up within 5 years of CAT, then arrangements can be made for the recovery of the asset to the local authority.
Are members content with that?
Claire, was green space and
Yeah, green
and
space,
as a sporting
green space
facility.
and sporting facility.
Right, thank you. Happy enough with that. Thank
Are members happy to agree those conditions then?
Agreed.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
So moving on to item number 10. This is our discretionary budget and tackling poverty and inequalities performance monitoring report for 2021 to 2022. It's important that members receive monitoring information.
Yeah, we're just going to bring Molly back in. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, right. Are we going back again? We have moved on to item 10, but was this an item 10?
Sorry, he was out as he declared an interest, so he's just rejoining in the meantime.
Ah, right. Okay. Apologies. Have we got Councillor Scobie back now?
Yes, Chair.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Item 10, moving on. Our next report, it covers the performance and monitoring from organisations in receipt of the discretionary grants from this committee in 2021-22. It includes performance monitoring from the Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget. And it is important that members receive monitoring information to know that the impacts of these funds, and it is helpful to also see included in the report some of the images to give us some account and to bring the projects to life. I think this, although small pots of money going out, can actually have an enormous positive influence on our communities, and it's really welcomed to get this back. We have got Ingrid on the line, Ingrid Gemmell, and she is here to answer any questions or address any members' comments. But Ingrid, is there anything that you wish to add before I open it out to members' questions?
Thank you, Chair. I've nothing further to add to the report. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Members, I'll open up the floor to yourselves if anybody's got any specific questions that they want to ask at this point. Councillor Ingalls, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, quick question on page 160, Chair. I note that the Stranraer Christmas decorations cost £8,250. The community assets team erect and dismantle the lights. Does that include the cost of that team putting up the lights and taking them down?
Ingrid?
Yeah, through yourself, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. Yes, it does. So there is a cost attached to the actual kind of putting up and dismantling of the lights. Yeah.
And is it? Can you give us an idea what that would be?
Unfortunately, my colleague Karen Brownlee, who would have known the answer to that, I think has just left the call, but it's one that I can check for you.
If you don't mind, that would be good. Really, my question relates to the cost per head when we split the funds here between the two towns, Stranraer and Newton Stewart, the Cree Valley Community Council one. It would appear that if we take the approximate numbers, that the balance is a wee bit skew if in favour of Stranraer. I wondered whether at some point we could maybe address that.
I'll certainly get that answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. I don't see any other members looking to come in at this point, so I'll do a final check. Oh, Councillor Scobie, yes, would you like to come in?
I don't know if that was a fair remark or question from Councillor Ingalls, given the population and so forth, but I hope that the whole thing's addressed rather than just referring to it as a skew in favour of Stranraer. And I'm sure there are other areas. I remember it said that going back to the Twin Trackers when it was regional council days, and everything was in Dumfries, and then when it came to district council, everybody believed it was in Stranraer, and then when it got to Newton Stewart and Whithorn believed everything was in Newton Stewart, and then the Isle of Whithorn believed everything was in Whithorn. So I think we need to be balanced in how we approach it, and that there is fairness rather than any suggestion of skewing in favour. Chair, my remarks are really, welcome, as you say at the beginning, reports when they're available and appropriate, but some of the have not taken place, or they've just had their funding or not long. I thought it was usually after 6 or a month to a year before we got feedback on them, on the projects, because there are some that's still to be held and so forth and so on. I wonder if Ingrid would care to comment.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Yes, Ingrid, if you can come in, and actually it'd be useful to maybe just confirm when we allocated these funds, just in response to Councillor Scobie. Thank you.
Yeah, so when we allocated them, in terms of discretionary budget, so we had the member seminar on the 10th of March 2021, where we agreed the strategic framework and the criteria, etc. And then I'm just looking through the report, just give me a wee second. Can I actually see the date? It would be May last year, I think, that we agreed the way that we were going to be taking this forward, and then the allocations were open. The expressions of interest, were open from that point, and then organisations were free to come in to put in their expressions of interest. Some of those expressions of interest have come in kind of at later dates, particularly around about the kind of Christmas events, I have to say. So where we did have original kind of timelines for that, a lot of the groups where their focus is in and around Christmas, they do tend to come in a little bit later, because that's where their attentions are at that point in time. In terms of the poverty and inequalities monitoring that's there, it was later in the year that I think it was September that we opened, that we certainly had the applications, and we're looking to kind of allocate that budget. We then opened in November for the small grants, and for those where there was the small grants, that has been kind of open on a continual basis, and we have had groups that have come in, very, very recently. Members will have seen some requests that have come in terms of applications through that via email from myself lately. So yeah, there has been some that have come in lately, but certainly for the poverty and inequalities budget, that has remained open until we closed before this report came to committee.
I think that addresses the question, because I was really speaking there in terms of when the monitoring reports come in. So I know there are some that have got them in, but they were late, and we were late in distributing these. Just on 2.5 and that 19,000, disappointing that we've not got it out as quickly as I would have liked anyway. But I would hope in next year, given the climate where we are in terms of budget increases in council tax, rises in electricity and fuel bills, I would hope that we can get this out to people as quickly as possible, and as soon as the new council is elected, that we get this out so that people can get the use of it.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. I would absolutely echo that extra 19.584 thousand that will be available to the new council and added on to next year if members are in agreement with the recommendations. Are there any other questions that members have? David, I've got your hand up. Councillor Ingalls.
Sorry to labour the point, Chair. On the Christmas lights, Cree Valley Community Council work really hard with Christmas lights. It's all volunteers, or a lot it's volunteers, and the cost associated with putting the lights up and taking them back down way outweighs any money that we get in grant funding here, and every little helps. And I'd like to suggest or propose that the spend per head is around the 60 pence mark, rather than slightly less for Cree Valley and slightly more for Stranraer, which would be Obviously, that's based on approximate beneficiary figures, but that's all we've got in front of us. So, yeah, I think it would give Cree Valley an extra £400 a year, which would really help towards the maintenance and erection of their lights.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. I think we're maybe straying into item 11 in terms of that suggestion, but if we can maybe look at the past monitoring report for 2021 and 2022, and I'll maybe bring you back in if that's acceptable, to maybe bring that point forward for item 11.
Yeah, apologies, Chair.
No, you're fine. There's lots of information to get through today. So if members are quite content and there's no other hands up, are we quite happy to go through the recommendations on item 10, which is 2.1 to note the performance monitoring, 2.2 to note the performance monitoring also on the tackling poverty and inequality separate budget, so appendix 1 and 2. Note that the significant number of citizens have benefited from the delivery of 47 local projects and initiatives, and over £285,000 has been invested in projects in the local Wigtown area. Agree to carry forward the remaining 2,700 from the 21-22 discretionary budget to 22-23, as outlined in paragraph 3.19. And then additionally agree to carry forward the remaining balance of 19,584 from the 21-22 Tackling Poverty and Inequalities budget to the 22-23 allocation as outlined in 3.19. Are members happy to agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. So staying with Ingrid at this point, we'll move on to our final report, which is the Wigtown Area Discretionary Budget for 22-23. And this looks at the budget setting and asks members to note the allocation of the discretionary budget to this committee. In addition, we're being asked to agree the funding for key civic events and agree to invite expressions of interest to deliver these. I would draw members' attention to paragraph 3.4, which makes reference to the fact that we have the local government elections in May, and as Ingrid had pointed out in the previous report, we would normally have a seminar at this time of year in order to put forward the criteria, and then in May we would have our regular area committee. Because of the elections, that normal cycle will not take place as it has done the last 5 years, which is the rationale for bringing this report forward today. But I'll just pass over to Ingrid to see if there's anything else, Ingrid, that you want to add at this point, and then we'll turn to members, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just really to say that this would be a timely way and a kind of proportionate way potentially to get money out to organisations quickly. We're very conscious that a lot of the groups who we are working with will want to be able to, do work or have events or, other things, especially when we're opening up in terms of kind of COVID and restrictions, etc. And that, if we were to wait for the new council, that might not happen in a timely way. So it's really just to kind of emphasise that fact and say that in order to get money, out to organisations, in time for summer even, we, it is recommended that we kind of look at this as a proposal.
Thank you, Ingrid. I'll bring David in. He's got his hands up. Councillor Ingalls, please.
Sorry, Chair, that was historic.
Okay.
But however, I'll take the opportunity and go back to my proposal that, when it comes to the Christmas lights, the balance of the payment to Stranraer Newton Stewart should be per head of beneficiary, based on the total amount allocated to both towns, and be split on that basis. And that's a proposal.
Thank you, David. I'm just trying to work out how we can actually look at this in a way forward, because if we sort of take this in a logical manner, the recommendations that we're noting the overall council's budget for area committee discretionary budget of 22-23 is £312,000. Are members happy to note that as a first? And then, if we're happy to know that, our second noting, and it is just for noting, is that the allocation for Wigtown Area Committee will be 59,904 as detailed in the report. What we have also just agreed is we're actually carrying forward from the previous item the 2,700. So Ingrid, are we able to? Is that 59,904? Does that include the 2,000 that we have just agreed, or does that need to be added in at this point? Just in terms of going through this in a logical manner.
Yeah, just to confirm, Chair, that would give you a total amount of 62,442.
442. Okay. So can we maybe get that noted for the minutes as well? So are members happy to note that the full allocation that we've got for 2022-23 will be, as Ingrid has pointed out, 62,000. Can you just confirm that, because I have got a note here of 62,604.
Yep.
But what was that the figure that you just said there, Ingrid?
Oh, sorry. My apologies. I was looking at Appendix 2 and no, the figure that you just referred to is the right figure. Apologies.
Okay, so
I was looking at the total proposed figure.
Okay, so 62,604, which then moves us on to the third recommendation, which I think is open for debate, and which is how we agree to allocate the funding. Now, I'm not sure of the wording of this one because it is referenced as key civic events, but certainly the Wigtownshire Area Committee hasn't identified in the past key civic events, and the distribution and the budget proposals are based on what we did last year, which has been allocated. In terms of the Christmas lights and community events, I'm aware that we took a decision, I believe, and Ingrid, please keep me right, was it 2 years ago that we took the decision that it would be open for any community event, including Christmas lights. And we had based that on the size of the community council areas, and which is quite useful. There is a reference to that list on page 161 from last year, 160 and 161, and going on to 162. So that allocation was a breakdown at that point. But if we're looking to amend the specifics on this, can you maybe advise us the best way that this can be amended if members choose to do so?
Through yourself, Chair, I certainly recall during the members seminar last year, we did look to uplift the allocation to Newton Stewart for their Christmas lights. I'd have to look at the detail around that, but there certainly was a conversation, and I am positive that there definitely was, and that was based on the amount of money per head.
So, again, just Chair, and Councillor Scobie, I see you're looking to come in. I'll bring you in. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, I'm just conscious of what David's motion is hoping to achieve, and given what Ingrid has just said, rather than take a decision today, conscious of what David's saying, that we get a further report on that so that we can see the full facts, the impact that may have if, as Ingrid has just said, she's conscious that it may have been taken per head of population. So, I think we need the information before us before a decision is taken on that. I think we should move forward just as it's laid out in Appendix 2, given the timing and people needing this money, that while I would hope we can concentrate more on anti-poverty, we need to look at that budget as well and getting that out to people who really need it and will need it over the period of the year. So I think we just accept the position as it is, maybe not satisfactory, but it's where we are in moving forward, so we can get events going or where people need that money from the discretionary fund.
Councillor Scobie, can I just ask for clarity on what you're proposing there? Are you proposing that we agree the allocations, but come back to look at the detail of those allocations at a later point? Is that what you're proposing?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Chair. We go with what we've got as time is not on our side, and we just move forward, and that allows officers to initiate these early indications that the discretionary budget is available.
Thank you. Councillor McComb, I've got you coming in, and I'll come back to yourself, Councillor Ingalls, if that's okay.
Thanks, Chair. To my mind, the greater priority here is the spending or the allocation of the anti-poverty money. I'm quite happy to support Councillor Scobie in terms of the overall allocations as set out on page 185. A further review with regard to Christmas decorations and community events could easily take place at a later date, certainly with regard to Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McComb. Councillor Ingalls, bring you back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to withdraw the proposal today if required. We have approximate figures for all areas that we allocate money for Christmas lights. We've got fixed budget for that. When you work it out, all the other villages get an average of £2.48 per head. Cree Valley gets 50 pence per head, and Stranraer gets 63 pence per head. So it's just addressing the balance there. At the minute, Cree Valley Community Council is the one that gets least. And it was just trying to address the balance as one of the major towns in the area. It's fairly simple to do from this document because all the areas are approximate figures. But I'm happy to leave it in, and as long as it comes back and we can review it before there is a firm allocation. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. I think it is important that there is equity across all our communities and that everybody feels that they have a fair chance. I think that's absolutely a reasonable position. I'm quite happy to support that. Ingrid, are you happy to take that forward and bring back a report? You've got your hand up at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that obviously, as we kind of alluded to earlier on, some of these communities will choose to have an event, a summer event, which is one of the reasons why obviously we're bringing this paper forward at this point. Should we have any delay in that area of funds, then that could impact on, if I was to bring a report back to the new council, that will impact on the ability for me to be able to get those allocations out to those communities in a timely manner. So it's just so that members are aware of that.
Thank you, Ingrid. I think again, it was alluded in the last report that the allocation, I believe, and I'm just looking back as well, it was agreed by committee on the 10th of June. So if we get a report back for the first area committee in June, I think that would satisfy and actually follow the same timeline that we had done previous, if members are content with that. So just to try and pull it together with a recommendation, what I'm hearing from the members is that we would be agreeing to the allocations as detailed in Appendix 2, with further detail on the specific allocations in terms of Christmas decorations and community events in the first area committee of the new council term. I am also aware that some of these topics are quite open, so I would fully expect a full report to be coming on those allocations, as has done in the past, if members are content to agree that way forward. Are members happy with that?
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. So that is our recommendations agreed for item 11, and that is the end of today's Wigtown Area Committee and
Chair.
actually our last of the council term. As I
Chair.
said at the start, thank you so much
Chair,
to the officers.
Could I maybe
yes,
just
Councillor
ask,
Scobie. Of course you can.
big indulgence of the committee, and we did get a communication from the acting chief executive in regards to the Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. I would hope where it is appropriate that it's not just the headquarters, but where we have got lights and able to do it, that we show our solidarity with the people of Ukraine and our heartfelt sympathies for what they're going through, and also to impress on the UK government that we accept the refugees, you know, and remove some of the barriers that's been spoken of over the last weekend. You know, for an area committee, I think we've got to express that solidarity, and to see other buildings that normally are lit up for other occasions to also be along with the headquarters.
I think absolutely, Councillor Scobie, it's extraordinary times that we're living in, and I would, completely support that sentiment. It's not necessarily normally within the remit of the area committee, but I think it's absolutely correct and right that we do acknowledge that, and I'm happy to support that. So if that can be taken back to the centre, that we would like to see that recognition and that support going across all our community buildings. And I'm certainly aware the likes of the Wigtown County buildings, Macmillan Hall and council properties in Stranraer all have flagpoles. So if there's an opportunity to put forward a suggestion of showing support, as has been done across the Scottish Government, Scottish Parliament, and COSLA leadership has come out in support of the Ukrainian crisis and those refugees, absolutely. I think that's, I'm more than happy to agree to that and ask officers to take that forward. So if we're content with that, as I said, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for your attendance. It's been an absolute pleasure to be the Vice Chair of Wigtown Area Committee this past 5 years, and I want to wish you all the very best in future elections coming up. So thank you very much.